This week, we continue our look back at Deconstructing Comics episodes featuring the work of R. Crumb. In 2009, Crumb released, of all things, an adaptation of the biblical book of Genesis. If the choice of material is a bit puzzling, the execution didn't clear up any of the confusion. So it's not a parody, but it's also not appropriate for kids? John and I reviewed the book in episode 415, and this week we flash back to that episode from August 18th, 2014. First, I want to thank our patrons for supporting the Deconstructing Comics family of podcasts. You can pitch in by pledging at least $2 a month at patreon.com/deconcomics. This is Tim.
This is John.
And this is Deconstructing Comics. Welcome to Deconstructing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo with John in Oakland, California.
Actually, Berkeley.
Or Berkeley, sorry. Close.
You were here.
I was there. I forgot where I was.
You were right across the street from where I'm sitting right now.
I forgot where I was. I was someplace in the East Bay. Berkeley. Yes, that's right. So a few weeks ago, a month or two ago, on the Facebook page, Deconstructing Comics Facebook group, the subject of Crumb's version of Genesis came up. And Kumar commented that he'd kept wanting to do a podcast about it, but he just couldn't quite figure out how to do it. And so from that came the idea that John and I would do it. So we're doing it.
Not so sure I'd go so far as to call it an idea, but there we
go.
Now, it's a show.
Yeah. It's an episode. The Book of Genesis illustrated by R. Crumb, or is it the Book of Genesis illustrated by R. Crumb? I'm not sure how that breaks up, but
it's the Book of Genesis illustrated by R. Crumb. So yeah, that's all 50 chapters.
Yeah.
And by the way, I do love, first of all, the fact that Crumb is so unashamedly comic booky about it. I mean, at the same time as he's using his what I like to call his classy style.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the style that evolved from after Weirdo, which he uses when he does a lot of this illustrated stuff, like his Kafka stuff, I guess would be another good example of that. Where it's all very tight like this, but at the same time, it's still got that thing he does.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of indefinable feeling that he has on it. And this cover, I mean, I just love the fact that it's, obviously something he did with his own hands all the way through, logo, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, but it's like a comic writ large, and at the back, it's like all 50 chapters, including.
Well, the back cover, it reminds me of like a 1930s superhero comic with all the little vignettes of different characters. Adam, Eve, the Serpent, Noah, Isaac,
like
they're all here.
Or they're like the Justice League or something. Yeah.
Yes.
It looks like one of those Crisis on Earth this, Earth that issues of Justice League. And on one side you'd have the League, and on the other side you'd have the Justice Society. And it's like that,
Crisis in Eden.
Exactly. Oh, that would be awesome. Give it to Grant Morrison. You never understand it, but God, wouldn't it be fun while you're reading it?
Well, and Adam would lose an arm probably if it happened.
No, that'd be Jeff Johns. He's the amputee fetishist.
Okay. Yeah. So.
It's true.
Well, what really struck me about this is how kind of half the story here is the reaction to the existence of this book. I remember when this first came out, I can't believe it's been 5 years ago already.
I know. Thanks. That's one of those things that just reminds me how old I am.
Yeah, same here.
Faster.
But my first reaction was kind of, why is Crumb doing a Genesis book and doing completely straight? It's not like a parody or something. And then looking at the Amazon reviews of it, especially if you look at the Now, most of the reviews on Amazon are glowing. Most of them are 5 stars.
Yeah.
There are some in the other levels, and if you look at the 1 and 2 star reviews, and even the 3 star, you get a lot of, this is not what I expected.
Yeah.
For various reasons. Because sometimes it's, I know R. Crumb, and I thought this was going to be funny and subversive, but he just plays it straight, and it's boring. And then there are others...
Even some of the high-star reviews say that. But as a way of warning the reader, this is not going to be Mr. Natural, you might be disappointed if that's what you're looking for, etc.
And then there are those who don't know Crumb and say, oh, it's a comic book about the Bible. This must be for kids, despite the disclaimer on the front cover. And what's all this sex doing in here? This wasn't what I wanted. And it occurred to me that it's kind of odd how odd this comic is, because we're so used to any kind of graphical depiction of the Bible being so filtered. And this is completely, well, as unfiltered as it can possibly be, I think. Maybe a little bit filtered. I'll talk about that later. But, he's just taking the text and putting pictures with it and doing as little interpreting of it or editing or whatever as he can.
Well, yes and no. I mean, that's what he says. Mm-hmm. And mostly I believe that's his intention. But first of all, I mean, as someone who's doing an adaptation myself, I can tell you there is no way... Right. If you're taking something from text into images, you're going to be interpreting it. You can't help it. There's no other way, because otherwise you wouldn't draw anything. Because, it's like...
right, and especially with a text this vague. There are such vague points in here that it can't be completely unfiltered. But
no, I mean, he's making decisions, for instance, as to how the serpent should look. He has a whole appendix at the back, and we can actually... It's good it's there, because that's something we can actually refer to, because we can see what his intentions actually are. But he mentions that it doesn't say specifically that the serpent had arms and legs. On the other hand, it also says that is implied that he must have, because suddenly he has to go on his belly, but he's cursed later on. And that, that's pretty much how all of us picture it. But that's another thing about it too, is that some of the choices he makes are very specific and intentional, like the choice to make everyone, as he says, extremely Semitic. Well, first of all, that depends on what Crumb means by Semitic. Second of all, a lot of the imagery he uses in here, I mean, he said in his NPR interview, you probably heard he said that when it came to the issue of costuming, he would refer to one of two things. Assyrian art. He says he actually referred to Assyrian art a lot as the basis for the way people look. But the thing is, the way he describes them looking is the most prominent feature he mentions is hook noses. And the thing about that is that whether or not that's the case, that is a specific choice right there. That he's going to depict Semitic people specifically with that characteristic. Now, I'm not saying, by the way, there's anything anti-Semitic about that. I'm just saying that that's a specific choice. That's an interpretation. So, and also, but it's also the costuming. He says that he got a lot of that from the Assyrian art, as I mentioned, but also Cecil B. DeMille's The Ten Commandments. Now, the thing is, he also says, well, I don't know how authentic that is, but who knows what people look like these days, which is true. I mean, we don't have any surviving examples. That's unfortunately one of the worst things about history is that clothes are the things that don't survive, or anything that's not made of metal or stone, or pottery. Hell, most of this history at this time, what there is of it is based on where pottery shards were found. A lot of it, there's not much more to go on than that. But the thing is that when you choose something like the Ten Commandments, what you're doing is you're already dealing with a received consensus view of how that stuff should look, which is also a choice. But also what you're doing is you're basically actually being traditional. Now that's whether that's good or not. But the point is that all these things are interpretations. So what we are dealing with here is definitely nothing definitive. What we're dealing with is Crumb's interpretation, just as, Gustave Doré or other people had their own interpretations of various things from the Bible or related stuff, like Paradise Lost or whatever. But it's interesting, a lot of our the way we think of these things actually do come from that kind of art. It's all a lot of it doesn't really even come from the text. It comes from movies, paintings, stuff like that. A lot of what fundamentalists think of the Bible actually comes out of things they don't remember they saw in movies.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, I think a lot of it comes out of The Omen. But I honestly think The Omen and The Exorcist are the two most theologically important pieces of culture in the last 40 years as far as American fundamentalists. They just don't realize it. Also American heavy metal. But The Omen's the reason for the ubiquity of 666. So, as far as versions of this stuff, the thing that the one to compare it to that most immediately comes to mind would actually be this thing I remember from when I was a little kid. One of the very first comics I ever had. It was this big tabloid comic from DC. And it was the Bible. They just said the Bible. Actually, it was just the beginning of Genesis, pretty much up to the end of the Sodom and Gomorrah story. I guess they intended to have more. It appeared that they had more, but basically, it's like it begins with these kids coming to their grandpa arguing, and apparently Jimmy's been saying things that his teachers have been telling him, like we came from apes and etc. Yeah. And the girl is saying, "Grandpa, tell him what's so," and Grandpa tells him what's so, and that's the framing device by which we get into the Bible.
Uh-huh.
Which is interesting because it was this whole comic was done by people like Joe Kubert mainly, and Sheldon Mayer, Jewish guys.
Hmm.
But they're sitting there basically starting it with an anti-evolution message, which is weird. Which something actually didn't even occur to me as a kid. It's a very classicist version. It's all mostly drawn by Nestor Redondo, and it appears to be over Kubert's layouts. It looks like it could be Kubert if you were, just glancing at it. But then, there's the different line work. And it's pretty much straight, although I will say it does have a pretty hot Eve. And they show as much of her as they possibly could in a 1972 comic, which is kind of neat. And that was that was what formed my imagery of the Bible when I was a little kid, from a frickin' DC comic. That's, I'd say that's pretty straight apart from the framing device. I'd say that it tries to play it pretty straight, but it's not as raw, definitely, as this is.
Mm-hmm.
This gets into some. There's, for instance, an example would be, this is actually something that really should satisfy the Crumb fans out there who are disappointed. There's the scene with Lot and his daughters.
Yes.
That is about as typical Crumb as you could possibly freaking get. By the way, I also like the touch of the Sodom and Gomorrah with the sperm of fire coming down, because tell me that's not what it looks like.
Let's see, where is that? No page numbers.
I swear to God, it looks like God is ejaculating on it with fire. And I thought that was kind of cool, actually. It certainly fits with the whole patriarchal sort of obsession of Genesis, definitely.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was his specific intention, but that's sure as hell what it looks like. And that's a pretty terrifying freaking scene. There's this one panel. It looks like fucking Hiroshima.
Yeah, I can't find it now, and they're.
It's don't you hate it when they don't have page numbers?
Yes.
And yet there's an appendix that refers to page numbers.
Well, what chapter is it in?
Oh, it's chapter 19.
19. Okay.
Right. And we're talking. Yeah. And it's like.
Oh yes.
Yes. And then there's this one dude who has a cross tattoo, by the way.
Yeah, I saw that. I think
one of the reviewers mentioned that.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, he did. I see that now. Although I'm not sure what kind of a cross that is. It's
Has roundy bits on the outside.
Yeah.
Could be a Pentecost cross, which would be really weird. But a little anachronistic. I'm looking at this, and I think that one of the first things to mention definitely about this is the artistic quality. I'm looking at just something like the smoke. There's this one panel here with right under the pillar of salt bit with Abraham looking over the hill at Sodom and Gomorrah burning. And oh my God, just the cross-hatching on those clouds of smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Really nice apocalypse art there.
Yeah.
He really captures how horrifying this actually is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the people out in the street and the balls of fire falling on them, and it's like charred corpses.
Yeah, it's pretty graphic. There's also another thing is there's every begat.
Mm-hmm.
And he does every single frickin' begat. And I mean, just some pages just entirely that. And what's neat is a different face every time. None of these faces are the same. I don't know how he did that. The number of distinct faces, male and female, in this, although I would say there's more distinction between the men and them than the women. Most of the women actually basically have that Aline Kaminsky Crumb look to them. Especially Eve. Most especially Eve. She looks exactly like a very young Aline. Which, I'm sure she was happy with that. I also like the fact that they picture them he makes it very plain that the sin is not sex.
Yeah, well, he mentioned that in the NPR interview because he was saying in a lot of cases when they do a graphic depiction of this, they're just kind of partying and carousing and having fun. And he thought, we need to show them doing something really bad. So they're like killing people and they're much nastier than in your average kids' illustrated Bible.
Well, it's like in the Garden of Eden. You have it's like right after Adam is introduced to Eve. The first thing he does is jump right on top of her. And it's like your classic R. Crumb sex wrestling scene. I mean, it looks just like any number of things with him in the picture instead. Except this time it's Adam. And the thing is that what it makes it very plain, that is not what God is mad about. And the thing, and given Crumb was raised a Catholic, that's particularly interesting because that's exactly what Catholics of his generation were taught. That the original sin was sex. But the thing is, if you've actually studied any theology, and I did at Loyola, and I did fairly well, but I think it was mainly because I was a non-believer. The rest of them just argued with the nun because they were mostly downstate Protestants, and their theology was different. I didn't care, so I just listened. But the thing about Genesis is that Genesis is freaking weird. Genesis is made of 4 different texts that have been slapped together. Mostly during the Babylonian captivity, where most of the so-called Mosaic texts come from, the ones that tradition says that Moses wrote, Genesis being one of those. I find that interesting because the thing is that would mean that Moses wrote the stuff after he died, because that's what happens toward the end of one. I mean, it's like he wrote, and God wouldn't let him in. And he died, and then
I died, and then after that, exactly right. And then after that, they blew down these walls, and I don't know how I wrote that down, but I'm a patriarch. Don't question it. So you have what is called the Elohist source, the Yahwist source, the priestly source, and I forget what the 4th one is. But the Elohist source and the priest and the Yahweh source are specifically important in the book, in the part of it dealing with Eden, because the Elohist source, basically, the reason it's called that is because that's the part with the first creation story. And by the way, I love that he shows that there are 2 creation stories that contradict each other right there at the start, and just slaps them right next to each other and just makes you deal with it. Yeah, you go, huh? Wait a minute. Where'd Eve go?
Exactly. It's like, what is Adam made of? And by the way, these are fun questions to pose next time you meet a fundamentalist, kids. What did God make Adam out of? And if they answer more than less than two answers, they are full of shit. They haven't been reading their Bible. I used to love to do that when I was growing up in the South. But that's why reading the Bible is worth doing, because they haven't. But the Allosaurus, basically, that God is plural. We is how it refers to itself. Mm-hmm. It is a plural of figures.
And those endnotes that he includes are really fascinating for a number of reasons. And one is that it mentions that the Hebrews at that time were not monotheists. They believed in a variety of gods.
Right, you make a contract with a specific god, and it's kind of like say in your neighborhood, and you ask for a specific capo to protect you because you're part of his territory. Mm-hmm. That's how they looked at gods in the Bronze Age. I mean, if you look at, for instance, other contemporary things like the Iliad, I mean, a lot of that kind of stuff, specifically a lot of things with God talking to people, appear around that time. And then there's the Bronze Age collapse, and then after that, in various cultures, God stopped talking to people until we get to the time of Muhammad. But in that time, it's like you compare that to other things. The gods then were not gods of love. They were not gods of peace. They were gods, at best, of protection. You didn't necessarily even like them, but they were powerful, so you allied yourself to them. Mm. And that's what the story of Genesis basically is the story of a contract, essentially. Mm-hmm. And the beginning of a contract, a covenant. That's what a covenant is. Yeah. But it's like you have two gods there. You have the Elohist God, and then you have the Yahweh's God. You have Yahweh himself. He is that he is. And he's the vengeful guy. He's the more earthly guy. The Gnostics usually would refer to him as actually the god of this world that they associated with evil. That particular figure has had a very interesting history, but that's the guy who pretty much God is from that point onward. And it's just weird resolving those two, and you can't really, because what you're looking at is an anthology that's been edited into a single work. But it's like, the thing is that the pure weirdness of it, because of the fact that he renders it more or less what's just dealing with the material that's there, he shows this weirdness in stark relief by doing this. But I'm looking right now, for instance, at the beginning with the two Genesis stories, and we get all the way, by the end of the seventh day, we've already got Adam, Eve, and bunnies. Bunnies, lots of bunnies, and they're all sitting there going, "Gosh, isn't he great at God?" Looks like is that a ferret or an otter? I guess it must be a ferret or a weasel. Wow. Okay, so one of the first things God was created was a weasel. That tells us a lot about the world. In fact, it's only two bunnies and a weasel and two birds who apparently probably didn't have long to live.
Well, and there's a deer and a mountain goat a few panels before that, and
it doesn't actually show in the first one what Adam was made out of. It's only in the second one that you have this muck that he makes it out of. Mm-hmm.
And by the way, you mentioned how when Eve is first created, Adam just kind of jumps on her. There's also there at the beginning of chapter 2, which is sort of the end of the first creation story.
She's all snuggled with.
Yeah, they're just snuggled together. And some of the Amazon reviews, the positive ones, were saying how Crumb humanizes a lot of this. And that's definitely true of the Adam and Eve stuff. Because, the books I grew up with that had pictures of Adam and Eve, they were just kind of standing around demurely in the garden with strategically placed branches blocking our view of certain parts. And, just kind of, looking at petting a deer, and, they weren't really paying that much attention to each other.
Yeah. And then there's something like, have you ever seen a John Huston film called In the Beginning?
No.
It's like this all-star version of Genesis. And at the begin and the start with Adam and Eve. Oh God, what is his name? Michael something. He was in Twin Peaks and Kill Bill and a few other things. He's this actor who always looks different in every single thing he's in. Michael something. I can't remember his name, but that apparently was his first part. And there he's just presented as impossibly perfect looking, as is Eve. And Eve there, as usual, is hot. It always seems to be a chance for them to get away with a hot nude chick in these things, for artists and filmmakers, isn't it? And good on them. That's fine. But so if you go do that, you might as well do it in a way that religious people cannot avoid. But yeah, it's always presented. I guess he's this Mr. Proto Man. Actually, something I just noticed about that too. The bit with them all snuggly and the bunnies and everything. That's actually the beginning of chapter 2, and chapter 1 here ends with them sitting and going, "Gosh, look at all this wonderful food! Thanks, God." So in chapter 2, they're already created at the beginning, and then he goes, "Oh wow, that's even weirder than I thought it was before."
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like I don't know how they decided the division of the chapters way back when, but it doesn't
I'm talking about
mesh
the way he divided the chapters. There's no reference to them anywhere in the beginning, in the text in the beginning of chapter 2.
Yeah, but the chapter 2 does say that everything was done, the seventh day, and everything's done, and then all of a sudden we're back to the beginning. I think that's the way the Bible's written.
I think he put the chapter 2 caption in the wrong place.
No, I don't think so. Hang on a second. I've got a Revised Standard Version here.
Oh, you've actually got a Bible there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, it's exactly right. Chapter 2 begins, "Thus the heavens and the earth were finished."
Wow, that is weird. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's even stranger than I thought it was.
No, that's the way the Bible's put together. I don't know who made the decision there.
That is slapdash editing. That's par for the course for the Bible.
Every week on Face the Music, an Electric Light Orchestra song-by-song podcast, we go into the history, the chart facts, and discuss every song ELO officially released. We even consult with the Future of Humanity on their opinion of the music. We also go into music by the groups that eventually became ELO. Face the Music, an Electric Light Orchestra song-by-song podcast, can be found on many podcasting sites. And join our YouTube channel, the Electric Light Orchestra Podcast channel, for exclusive episodes.
It's a beautiful new day. Hey.
But and I'm looking at these chimeras that he has guarding the and then I love the flaming sword, this whirling flaming sword. That is some nice line work there.
Ooh, where is this?
At the end of chapter 3, right before that. Yeah, the
whirling sword.
Yeah, it's sort of a whirlpool of flame. That's neat. It's very supple. It's really pretty.
Yeah, and he threw in some griffins for good measure. That's cool.
Yeah, that's what they are. Yes, griffins. Thank you. I call them chimeras. Although I guess that's a very general term that probably would work. And then I'm looking at Mr. Snake Man over there. Oh my God, Mr. Snake Man, he's got a six-pack there, doesn't he? Yes, that's wow. He looks like a Spider-Man villain. He looks like a naked Kurt Connors. And that is an image I didn't need in my head.
A little short, but yeah.
Behold, Spider-Man! Oh, God, no.
Behold, my arm has grown back.
What is the deal with Kurt Connors, anyway? I don't understand what his thing is. It's not like he even wants anything. The Amazon reviewers. There was one star review that almost had something of a point, which was is Robert Triptow. Oh my God! You know who that is?
No.
Robert Triptow is an underground cartoonist. He's the guy who created Gay Comics.
Okay.
That was his baby. He also was instrumental in the Strip AIDS collection, along with Trina Robbins and Bill Sienkiewicz. I've actually spoken to him. I actually sold him an old Nixon puzzle I had, which I had never even been taken out of the plastic. But no, he's basically criticizing it for basically not being as good as Crumb could have done. But also that he believes that adapting the material straight is mind-numbing. But he's criticizing Crumb for... Actually, what is it in the end? A guilt-ridden Catholic boy trying to atone for the excesses that made him famous in the first place. Well, fair enough, Robert, but I mean, a 1 star is still a little harsh.
Yeah, especially when he starts out with how good the art is.
Yeah, I mean, that would at least I would get 1 more star for that, right? I mean, but I didn't realize. So basically, this is him being criticized by a fellow underground cartoonist, although one of a following generation. But that's interesting. But yeah, the rest of the 1 star reviews are yuck, nudity, and so forth. It's like the sex is gratuitous, and the thing is, when anyone says that, all sex is gratuitous as far as they're concerned. So you can dismiss that out of hand right there.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty tasteful compared to what it could have been. You know,
oh hell yes!
Look at some of Crumb's other work if you want much more gratuitous sex than this.
Well, he said in the NPR interview that the genesis of this was I didn't mean to say that, but I'm not even sure if he said that. I bet he avoided it. I didn't. But anyway, he said that this started out when he was going to do a more satirical treatment of Adam and Eve, and he wasn't really. It didn't really float his boat. You know, it didn't really click for him, and that's when he decided to just try to go ahead and do it straight because he figured that's weird enough as it is, and to be interesting. There's also things like the way he, I will say, the way he depicts the Nephilim is kind of weird. They look like he has it. It looks like some kind of weird elf.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Nephilim.
The Nephilim are basically and this is something that came up in that awful Noah film, which, by the way, is another good thing to compare this to. That thing was awful. Oh my God! But basically, the idea is that there were these angels that were on Earth. They were the Watcher angels, and tradition has it that they are the ones who taught man to do everything. Think of the myth of Prometheus, but without the punishment, and you basically get the Watcher angels. Teaching man how to make fire and so forth. What happened was that some of them went, "Hey, human women, wow," and what you might expect happened if you know any Zeus story. Next thing you know, you got all these demigods, essentially. And then it says, they are the heroes of old, the men of renown. And the interesting thing about that is that the way it's described is you get the idea. They don't actually explain what these things are, much more specifically than that. But the sense is that people at that time would have known what they were referring to. And that makes me curious as to what these are. I mean, are we talking about Gilgamesh, for instance, which is related to this? I mean, Gilgamesh is where the flood story comes from. But this weird elf-looking guy, I don't know. It's like, I'm not sure if I would have pictured an angel that way, but whatever.
What kind of a gorilla with long hair on top of his head?
Kind of, but he's got these little elf ears. He looks like Orlando Bloom after he's been working out for a bit. And the woman's going, "Gosh, angel taking me." She doesn't even look. She doesn't look that scared. More like I don't know, just very vaguely nervous.
Okay, all right. Yeah, you're looking at that first panel. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, and then you have these guys with the weird ponytails below, and those weird submariner eyes. And the next page, you get like a sense of what he was talking about how horrible these people could be. Although it's not Sodom and Gomorrah; it's before the flood. It's like this room where these awful people have these people all naked and tied up like pigs, and they're just torturing and killing them for no apparent reason. Mm-hmm. And that's a pretty grim little panel.
Yeah.
also, and apparently this is a king's room, and God, that's an ugly place for a king's throne room. It's like, look at all those bones and shit. I like how he depicts Noah as basically being sort of befuddled. The whole time he just sort of looks like, fine, God, just don't kill me. You know, he's just got that kind of look on his face. He's just this sort of roundy, sort of vaguely cutesy old man. And he just sort of looks like, what? Why? Fine, whatever.
Speaking of Noah, I noticed a couple of the Amazon reviewers got the impression that Noah's sons were being pictured as the Three Stooges, and I don't really get that from looking at the pictures.
Let me see. Actually,
like chapter 9.
I can see that.
It kind of works, but I mean,
2 out of 3 anyway. The third one looks like the Hound from Game of Thrones. But yeah, I'm looking at this at one panel where you have Noah and his 3 sons all smiling as God's telling them how awesome they are, and the 2 on the right side of the panel. I'm seeing Larry and I'm seeing Mo. Mm-hmm. But not so much the one right above Noah's head. Not so much him.
I think I see what panel you're looking at. Yeah, I don't see a Curly here.
There's no Curly, but he could be Shemp. He could be Shemp.
Yeah, that could be.
He's got that greasy sort of quality to his very thick hair, so it could be. And also just this look that the whole Noah family keeps having on their face when they do something right. Like, gosh, I got it right. In the Blessed Be panels down there, it's like both the sons going, ha ha ha. They got this sort of smug look on their face. Yeah, I did the right thing. I didn't look at my dad naked. But that the thing is, that is kind of how I always pictured it. Another thing that he brings out throughout this, and I think this is most glaring in the story of Jacob, which I have to admit I never really paid that much attention to before. My God, what a shit Jacob was. But what venal people most of these characters are. Mm-hmm. And as part of it comes out of a certain inherent sleazy quality to Crumb's style as it is. His style is grotesque. These people are grotesques, inherently grotesque, no matter how realistically he pictures them. That's just the way Crumb draws people. And, there's always this vague nightmare, oh my God, I'm actually around these people quality to whenever he draws people. Throughout, it's like, one thing that's emphasized is that these people are mostly in it for themselves. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I mean, there's no like New Testament altruism concept here. This is more like what is good for me, my family, and those of my blood, etc., etc. Mm-hmm. And it's also pretty blatant about the status of women as property. And it's mostly expressed by a lot of silent stuff where the man is talking and the woman is reacting. A really good example is when Abraham is about to go into Egypt. And he's telling it's Sarah, and this again, by the way, is something that keeps happening. Jacob does it too, but Abraham actually does it twice. He says, "Look, it's like this. We're going to go into Egypt, and if I need to give you to the Pharaoh to make things sweet for me, I'll do it." So you're fine with that, huh, hon? I mean, that's pretty much what he's doing there.
Well,
and
did you read the commentary in the back?
Yes, but at the same time, I'm looking at what he depicts, and what he depicts is a very sad Sarah. She is not happy about this. This is like 2 pages before chapter 13. Okay. It's the one the passage that begins, "Look here now, I know my wife is beautiful to behold, and so when the Egyptians see you and say she is his wife, they will kill me while they will keep alive." And the thing is that he is very careful to show that Sarah is not pleased about this. And all the way through, she never has a happy look on her face, and she has a relieved look on her face when the Pharaoh releases her. And the thing is, though, that there's also a sense that she has to bear this. There's nothing she can do about it. And when I look at that, my sympathies are with her. Mm-hmm. And that happens again and again. I keep noticing that I do not, well, except maybe Sarah when she's old, she becomes a bit of a shrew. But that whole thing with Hagar, that's not cool. But throughout, he really does bring up the fact that these women are suffering silently a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's neat.
Yeah, now I mentioned the commentary. For the listeners, I should explain it. So he talks about a certain book that he read. I don't have that in front of me right now, but it explains how apparently much of Genesis reflects a past kind of matriarchal society, which later male-dominated generations kind of tried to remove from this book and change things about it to make it seem more patriarchal. And he talks about how apparently it seems as it could be that Sarah was actually kind of a priestess, and maybe this can all be explained in that way. It goes into more detail than that, but maybe even though Crumb knows that, maybe he's illustrating like her reaction to things based on the text as it exists in a more patriarchal way.
Well, the thing is, that's what he says, and I'm familiar with that hypothesis, which is what it is, obviously. Pretty much any idea of biblical interpretation of any kind is hypothetical, because again, a lot of the time, all we have is what we have of these texts and where we found pottery shards. That's most of our history for this time. For instance, did you know that there is absolutely no historical evidence they've ever managed to find to back up Exodus.
Exodus, okay. Yeah, you faded out here a bit.
But I mean, this is Israeli archaeologists who say this. So things like that is all quite tenuous. Mm-hmm. Now, I am familiar with that concept, and it has a lot of validity. And we don't really have the time or the scope here to go into testing that. And frankly, I don't know it well enough. And I can see that, but that's still not something that you glean from the way it's depicted. You'd only know that if you read the appendix, so I'm not sure how useful that is, except to understanding what Abraham does and why this specifically. Not only does Abraham does this twice, Jacob does it at least once. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, what you do get in the text is a sense of bad guests. They come in. And the thing is, it's not like the Pharaoh is threatening to them at all. He's quite welcoming. Which is quite, not something you'd expect if mainly what you were familiar with was something like the Ten Commandments. The thing is, though, he's quite welcoming and nice to him. He doesn't seem to be any kind of problem at all. And the thing is that his reaction is later, why didn't you just tell me this? It's almost like a Seinfeld episode. I mean, it's just so awkward. I'm just sitting there picturing Abraham as George, It's like... And then later, the second time, he explains it all, but said, well, actually, she is my sister.
Yeah, just like a half-sister or something.
My half-sister. I'm sitting going, oh, really? Huh. Well, that makes it all better there, Abraham. Again, it's one of those things I did not notice. Whatever. But I'm not in a position to I mean, frankly, if I'm going to criticize Abraham, I'm going to have to go into Isaac. So, I mean, there's enough there. But as a character, he does come across as a bit of a shit. Mm-hmm. But like I said, Jacob even more so. What he does to poor Esau. I love the way Crumb depicts it, because you really feel bad for that big lug. And that's how he pretty much pictures him. He's this big guy, and he's kind of dumb, and he's really hungry one day, and he gives up his birthright. And it's it's almost funny, that scene. Mm-hmm. But then it becomes tragic. And it's rather sad, but it's like at the same time, he depicts Jacob as being very crafty. I've heard it said that Jacob is an equivalent in that mythology of a sort of a trickster figure. And Crumb really does bring that out there. But I was wondering what you think about just the general flow of it as a comic.
Well, the since he leaves all of the begats in, it does get kind of slowed down when it gets. I mean, and he illustrated those. He mentions in the NPR discussion that he didn't want it just to be a block of text and people would skip over it. But
I would.
But I mean, I still felt kind of compelled to skip over some of those places because like I'm looking at chapter 36. I don't know who any of these people are. I mean, he's gone to a lot of work here, giving each one a distinctive face, and that makes it a little more interesting. But, the original intended audience of this writing knew who those people were, presumably. But for us, it's just not very useful. I mean, the parts that are actual story and narrative.
Oh God, I'm looking at the pages you're talking about. Oh my God, that's 3 straight pages, and it's just nothing but a list of chieftains. It's not even begats.
Mm-hmm.
This establishes no history, no hierarchy. This is just a list of chieftains of various places. Wow, okay.
It's like a list of governors of every state. Okay, whatever. One of the Amazon reviewers mentioned too, I mean, like, why did he leave in all the places where, like, and then he said, and then this person said, because it's a comic and you're seeing the people talking and they got word balloons, and it might have flowed a little bit better as a comic without including that. But, I think it sounded like from the NPR discussion that Crumb was afraid to kind of change the text at all or take anything out because it was kind of a slippery slope, and he was afraid pretty soon he'd be justifying more, bigger changes than that.
Oh, I can totally see that.
Yeah, I can too. But yeah, at the same time, it does break up the flow a little bit to have those unnecessary in a comic context, and he said narration boxes. And yeah, I don't know, the narrative style of the Book of Genesis is very terse and not the way it would be written now. It doesn't have really any. Sometimes there's drama in the stories, but it's not expressed in a dramatic way, or at least not one that we expect. And so that makes it a little clumsy to read, regardless of the format. A comics form helps, I think, but and particularly the story of Joseph, it's a great story, regardless of how it's being told, and I think it's maybe one of the most dramatic parts of the book, and I think Crumb does that very well.
So it's like a whole book unto itself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, technically it is, but yeah, Jesus, how much? Wow, it's like it's almost like half the book, that part.
The Joseph part, that's maybe about a third.
From at least the first place I see Joseph, that's pretty substantial. Wow.
Mm-hmm. I think that picks up right after that, all that chieftain stuff in chapter 36.
Yes, it does. It's precisely there, yes. And then in the next page, I love that panel where Joseph wakes up from his dream. That's very...
Mm-hmm.
That's very... that's a very Albrecht Dürer kind of looking thing. And maybe I'm saying that because of the hair. But something about the line quality, the sort of gothicness of it. That's one of the nice ones. That's actually that one panel is actually very classic sort of biblical type of illustration, its tone. But the thing is, I am wondering that what you say about the flow. Now, would you say that approximates the way it feels the original? I mean, would you say that that's a little staggered too?
Oh yeah, that's just the way it's written.
So would you say that's a valid way to pace it then?
Well, certainly valid. I think, if you're talking about how it flows as a comic, I mean, if he had mucked with it a little bit, it might have flowed better for our sensibilities. I mean, there's kind of a tension there between how do you do this best as a comic and staying true to the original text, which was kind of his focus in this project.
And this wasn't a commission. This is just a project that he came up with. Mm-hmm. Crumb doesn't really do commissions. I mean, he pretty much does whatever he wants to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But although it's interesting, one of the Amazon reviews said, "Buy this and support Crumb. He's had trouble with the IRS for years." I guess this person hasn't kept up because that was 30 years ago. But whatever. The reason he left America because he wanted to leave America. Period. He sold a bunch of trunks of his sketchbooks and got the hell out. I mean, that was what he did. But that had nothing to do with the IRS. He resolved that years ago. But the thing is, though, when I'm adapting, I've been fucking around quite a lot, but that's mostly just in an effort to make it more modern. But I'm not dealing with anything that's quite this controversial if I did something to it. Crumb is dealing here with one of, I guess, the 2 or 3 things in the world there. If you get them wrong, people are really mad. Mm-hmm. I guess the Quran would be another one. But if you drew a comic of the Quran, I expect that you'd probably face even worse problems.
Yeah.
Just from the first page, really.
Mm-hmm.
So there was God, and or no. Oh, wait, no. There was Muhammad. See, that wouldn't work. But the thing is that, first of all, there's the aspect that he was creating a problem to solve for himself, which is creating the rules of, I'm going to, as best as I can, depict exactly what's there, and only add things when it's necessary to flesh it out, such as the way the serpent is depicted, mm-hmm. such as the way he chooses to depict most of the characters ethnically. I will say that NPR person who called, who said that he's using this, by the way, in a prison sort of Bible teaching environment, which is kind of neat. Mm-hmm. Although the fact that you're teaching the Bible in prison, I won't go into my problems with that. But, if you're going to do it, this is a neat thing to do it with. Crumb seemed kind of touched by that. But he mentioned that there are no black characters anywhere in it. And then Crumb says, well, but, I mean, these are Semitic people. And the thing is, that's kind of a fuzzy thing, really, isn't it? I mean, being Semitic and black were not mutually exclusive.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true. I think the caller was wondering if the kind of archaeology, more recent stuff like that human life apparently originated in Africa and Lucy and all that stuff, and I think he was wondering if why that had not influenced Crumb's depiction of Adam and Eve. But I can see Crumb's point that the Bible doesn't say that Adam and Eve were from Africa. It says that they were, well, it doesn't really say where they are, I guess. But
the thing is, this occurs in the Levant. The Levant is part of Africa. And Egypt is part of Africa. Mesopotamia, I guess, that's a fuzzy area. They used to refer to that area as Asia Minor, I believe, but it's certainly close enough. But Egypt is definitely in Africa. So, I mean, I think it would have been valid to have black characters. On the other hand, this is Crumb. Maybe we're better off. Because that could go one of two ways.
Uh-huh.
It depends. I mean, when he's drawing blues musicians, he's quite respectful, but I'm not so sure about some of his black characters sometimes. And everyone knows if they know Crumb at all, they know exactly what I'm talking about. So maybe it's better not. Maybe it's more of an issue of maybe he just didn't want to tread there, because he's probably going to deal with enough shit on this potentially, although he hasn't. But he had every reason to believe he would, because A, it's him, and B, it's the Bible. But the thing is that, first of all, he had that problem, as I said, that he was trying to stay within the rules of it. I'm a big believer with things like these kind of things in setting rules. Otherwise, there's no point in doing it. Then you, at least you have a coherent vision when you're done. You might set out to have a very specific thing that is smaller than just having a sort of a willy-nilly scope, but at least you end up with something solid. And I think is what he's done there. But also there's the issue of if he changed a single thing, really, he'd get crap for that.
Mm-hmm.
He would immediately get crap for that. This book the problem is that a fundamentalist has to contend with this, because this is pretty much what's there. So they can't get angry at it for being blasphemous. Although on Amazon, some do.
There was one who was complaining about the translation that he used in the story of when Abraham is asked to sacrifice his son, Isaac?
Yes.
And the traditional translation of that phrase is God will provide, but he uses Robert Alter's translation, which is different from that. Actually, my Revised Standard Version gives that one in a footnote, so I think it just depends on how you read the original. But someone is saying, no, the obvious translation is God will provide, and why didn't he do that? And seems to be suggesting Crumb has some kind of agenda there, which I don't think he does.
Well, there's others, for instance, that some of these are really hilarious. There's this one at the very bottom who's basically angry that God is depicted in any way whatsoever. Although the thing is that the Genesis, I mean, it has things like God physically walking around talking to Abraham, which is interesting because later in the Bible, Moses gets aged just by looking at God's back. It is a very big point later in the Bible that nobody can look directly at God and live. And yet Abraham does that very thing. Maybe it was just anyone after Abraham. I don't know. But that's more of a very orthodox Jewish kind of complaint, that you can't really depict God or you can't say his name. So that's a specific religious kind of complaint there. But then there's another one. And this person is going to come and says, in the book of Genesis, God first says, let there be light, and only later decides to create the sun and the stars. You can't have light unless you first have the stars and the sun. This cartoon confirms the nonsense of creationism that fundamentalists want taught in schools, etc., etc. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, oh my God, you have no idea what this was for, do you? I mean, basically, this person was simply going to anything that had anything remotely to do with the Bible and say, oh, this should be destroyed. And it's like, I have no patience with those kind of people. I'm an agnostic, but I still think that these things are part of culture and they're worthy of study. So I'm glad that Crumb did this. Mm-hmm. And because at the same, on one hand, I'm not a believer. At the same time, I do find these things interesting and useful.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, it could have gone even weirder. Crumb could have chosen to do the Apocrypha, which is, and fortunately he didn't, so maybe someday I can. But it's like something like the Forgotten Books of Eden, which is basically everything between the expulsion and them settling down and having kids. In between is basically this trip through this blasted wasteland of hell that God is, apparently the rest of the world is. It's like just because God is so mad at them. And what happens is that Adam repeatedly tries to kill himself and take Eve with him, and God repeatedly stops them. Picture, for instance, imagine there's one scene where, I can just imagine how Crumb might have drawn this, where Adam goes, screw it, and just throws himself into this river and takes Eve with him, and suddenly the hand of God comes out and plucks them out and basically says, you're not getting out of this that easy. And I'm just picturing this huge Terry Gilliam sort of God hand. And, I mean, it's just so inherently comic-y, really. I would love to see a comic from this. Like I said, someday maybe I'll do it. I don't know. That would be fun. But that's apocryphal, so maybe it wouldn't have been as major a thing, as him actually.
Well, yeah, people are not as familiar with that, certainly.
No, but it is certainly fun. Mm-hmm. But apocrypha generally are, because they're generally folk tales that somehow at some point became scripture and then stopped being scripture at some point. But they're usually a lot of fun. Job was a story like that. I noticed that one of the callers on the NPR thing asked him if he'd do the book of Job. Mm-hmm. And that would be awesome. But someone already has. Kim Deitch has. Kim Deitch did it in a knockabout a book called Outrageous Tales from the Old Testament. Mm. Which also has stuff by Neil Gaiman and stuff, and has also one page done by Brian Bolland, where he depicts the whole thing with Elijah being mocked for being bald, and then he curses these boys, and bears come out of the woods to eat 30 of the boys. And Bolland just draws that. And actually, it's very comparable to this, because he does just draw what's there, and he draws it very perfectly, and it's freaky. It's freaky. Have you ever seen that book?
No.
Oh man, you should definitely at least try to find a torrent of it or something. I'm sure it's completely out of print and hard to find. It's really interesting. It also has Alan Moore and Hunt Emerson doing the Book of Leviticus, and basically what it is like Moses reading it out, and the Hebrews keep killing each other until eventually there's none left. Because of all these new rules. It's like, that, for instance, he who does it during that time of the month, may his blood be upon him, and he gets his head smashed in with a rock. And then that person gets their head smashed in a rock because they did something else, etc., etc., etc. Now that's how Crumb might have done it if he'd done it satirically. That really looks like how that would have looked. And it's an interesting point of comparison. I wish you'd have seen that, because in context of this, you might find it really, really interesting. Because those are satirical, but they're also basically trying to point out, this is what's there. Mm-hmm. This is what's sitting there in the Bible. You're not even paying attention. And by simply depicting it, that's an act of satire. So I wonder if you could argue that by simply showing it for what it is, he's satirizing it already by doing that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially the sex parts and the two daughters doing their father. And
yeah, I keep coming back to that. That is like that, because that scene. Would you say that is possibly the most? If someone was going to find something shocking in this book, that is definitely the most shocking thing that's in this book.
Yeah, I think so.
It's certainly the rawest. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's incest. It's depicted graphically. It's a three-way. I mean, and they drink and everything. A lot of people really do tend to get drunk after disasters in this thing. Noah definitely.
Yeah, well, Noah supposedly invented booze. So
exactly. Yes. Yes. First thing he does afterward. Vineyard, and somehow he really has wine very quickly after that. It must have been some really crap wine, because I mean, he doesn't look like he even waited.
hasn't been aged at all. Yeah,
yeah. I mean,
it's vintage last week.
Isn't it basically grape juice? I mean, it needs a chance to ferment, right? I don't know much about these things, but then again, the time scale of the patriarchs, maybe I don't know, because it seems to be a normal life, and then multiply it by 80. Yeah,
he lived to 400 years old or something.
Which is mainly just a device for getting over what would otherwise be huge longueurs in the timetable. So you say, well, then this guy must have lived 800 years.
That explains it.
It's the same logic by which we often had them thinking that there were two pharaohs in a particular period when actually it was one who reigned for a very long time. That's the other interesting thing. We are constantly finding that the time span keeps expanding. We keep finding we have the timeline wrong, and there were actually more years in those periods than we thought. And when I start to think about that, my mind just goes weird, because it's like you can't even start thinking about that. It's like, what, there are missing years? I mean, even from the years we know, and these time spans with these patriarchs, I mean, it's just freakish. But the thing about the Begats is, I do think that the comic form does help, because the comic form to some degree has elements of diagrams, and that actually is a better way of depicting it than a list. So it's like you can almost have a poster here if you want to do biblical teaching, I suppose. I actually think that if a biblical scholar is honest, this actually is very useful. As long as they have they don't have a problem with the graphicness of it, because again, that's the Bible. I mean, the Bible is that way.
Mm-hmm. Coming up, showing characters' silent reactions not mentioned in the biblical text, the downside of Crumb's beautiful cross-hatching, Crumb's biblical women, and our overall take on the Book of Genesis Illustrated. This month on Bat Bits, we get the details on the annual Adam West Day celebration on Adam's birthday of September 19th, in his hometown of Walla Walla, Washington. This episode will be free with ads on Patreon and in the To the Bat Polls podcast feed. Or support our Patreon at $2 a month and get the episode ad-free. Also this month, Nancy Northcott joins us once again to discuss Women on Batman. We'll be discussing the 3 episodes featuring Anne Baxter as Olga, Queen of the Cossacks. This episode will only be available to Patreon supporters for at least $2 a month. At $4 a month, you also get our monthly show Silver Age Batman, where we're looking at many of the wacky Batman stories from the 50s. This month, Patrick and I discuss The Vanished Batman from Batman issue 101. Also at the $4 level, you can still access our past series that covered the first 50 issues of Amazing Spider-Man and more. Follow our Patreon for free and get access to the first 2 episodes of both Bat-Bits and Silver Age Batman. Check it out at patreon.com/deconcomics. And thanks for your support. A couple of other things I wanted to kind of mention. Here and there, I was noticing how, he would insert, or he's drawing this, of course. So when somebody does something kind of surprising, other people in the panel need to react to it, even if it's not in the text. So here and there, there'll be somebody who's kind of puzzled by something someone says, and they'll have a little question mark coming from them.
For instance.
Or when Adam tells God that Eve made him eat the apple, then she shoots him a glance.
I like that.
And kind of sweats, and that really works.
That's actually the first instance of the kind of thing I'm talking about what you see in the faces of the women throughout this. Mm-hmm. That's the first moment. It's like, oh, that's how it is. I see. That's the look I'm seeing. Mm. What's your issue with it?
Well, I don't really have an issue with it. I just thought it was interesting. That's one point where, obviously he has to put some of his own interpretation into it. I'm looking now. Let's see. I just happened to turn to the middle of chapter 42 within the story of Joseph, where the brothers don't know that this.
That's near the end.
Yeah, Joseph's talking to his brothers, but they don't know he's Joseph, because it's been years ago that they sold him into slavery, and now he's dressed like a pharaoh, or whatever.
Right, and then he starts fucking with them for a little bit.
Yeah, and
which is great.
Then he'll run off and cry. And it shows, I think he's supposed to be the interpreter. The interpreter's looking at him crying, and he's got a question mark coming out. And I just thought that was cool.
And that's that goes back to what I'm saying, is he's not ashamed of the comiciness of the way he does this. Mm-hmm. The thing is, that's part of the language of comics. Why not? The thing is, that would end up making it a completely dry work of illustration. It would be stiff.
Yeah.
And this, I like this because that he has no problem doing it. But it's a comic. Use that stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't think at this point that it. I'm trying to look for the right word. De-dignifies the material. I don't know. I use that stuff all. Yeah, I use that stuff all the time. Mm-hmm. Myself, I have no problem with it. Or the scene where Joseph is interpreting the dreams of the 2 guys he's in jail with, mm-hmm. and I think it's the chief baker, the one who's going to get his head chopped off. Mm. And when he finds out that birds will eat his flesh from off of you, suddenly all the sweatles come popping out of his head. Uh-huh. And I love that. It's like, oh god, and he's like, sweat is actually exploding out of his head. And the other one, by the way, who knows he's going to be okay, suddenly his head is full of sunlight, more or less. And actually, come to think of it, I'm looking throughout, he keeps doing that. All these little starburst things around people's heads. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just above that panel I was talking about, one of the brothers, Reuben, is speaking to the others, and he's kind of angry, and there's that burst of light behind his head to show the anger. You
definitely get that when Esau's all like, "Father, what the hell?"
And I also like, Joseph speaking Egyptian to the brothers so he won't blow his cover, and he's got those hieroglyphs in his word balloon. That's awesome.
That is really, really great. I mean, the thing is that also, if he hadn't done that, then given the way these people are drawn, it really could have gotten hella stiff. It really could have, because all this hyper cross-hatching he uses here, which is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I love the texture of it. I mean, I'm going to study this thing, frankly. But it's like, the problem when you do that is that it reduces the amount that the characters seem to be in motion. This is why I've gradually reduced the amount of cross-hatching I put on my own characters over time, and mostly now put that in the background. Because I find the characters tend to seem a bit more mobile when you take more of that off them. The more you put that on, the more still it tends to look. And the thing is that the way that he uses the word balloons, the softness of them, the organicness of them, the fact that they're irregular shapes depending on what is needed for that particular space, which makes them part of the image rather than something floating above the image. It's actually within it. It's almost like, something that grew on top of it, really, which is how Crumb's lettering generally looks. That and things like having those little starbursts, things like little question things. Yeah, I mean, it softens it. It makes it flow better. It makes everything seem more alive than it might have otherwise. And as far as the starburst, by the way, I especially love it. He does this a lot in his work. I've noticed this a lot in some of his Devil Girl work. With Joseph here, he has like this sort of flame starburst coming out of him, and it's like, that's just so beautifully drawn. That's just a whole bunch of like little crow quill lines. That's hell to do. Absolute hell to do. But also, like when Isaac is freaked out when he finds out what he did to Esau, he shrinks. You have all these little shrink things, and the sweatles bursting out of him, and just all these little melodramatic devices that are perfect for this material. Because I mean, this is primordial kind of material. It should be treated that way emotionally. I mean, ultimately, this should be hitting people on an almost childlike emotional level, because that's a primitive emotional level. Because that's that's the kind of emotions you're seeing in this. The emotions of lust, emotions of grief, emotions of exaltation, of victory, etc. All very primal. Quite uncivilized, really. I mean, after all, you're dealing with a bunch of people who the only way of survival they had was basically to constantly make covenants and agreements with each other, even between humans and gods. But otherwise, I mean, get the sense that these people could kill each other at any time. Otherwise, it's people basically making deals over very limited resources, which of course has absolutely no relevance to that part of the world today. I can't imagine people finding this has any resonance, definitely, but definitely not getting into that.
The other point I wanted to mention, I was struck by how many of the Amazon commenters talked about the women, the way that Crumb draws them, and the kind of divided into the two camps. One was the text says these women are beautiful, but they aren't camp, and the Crumb women camp. But I think that Crumb is drawing. I mean, nobody's been more public about his taste in women than Crumb, and I know that he likes big, thick women, and that's the way he draws practically every female in this book.
He cannot lie. Yes. The thing is that, generally speaking, most people I know who, it's like if they're like a comics layperson, if there's someone who doesn't really read comics, the thing is, if they know Crumb at all, that's what they know him for. But at the very least, women with big butts and big legs. Big women, period. And the thing is, I'm continuing to look through this, and I'm noticing that, by the way, I did notice in one of the begats there are actually some black characters. In fact, quite a few. But No characters have speaking parts, as far as I can tell, though. But the thing is that, again, like I said before, the men there are no two men who look the same.
Mm-hmm.
But there are lots of women who look the same. They all pretty much follow that basic Aileen type. At various levels of grotesquerie. But, depending on their age, really. But, I mean, for instance, okay, here I have two on the same page. We have the two daughters of Lot. And one of them looks a little bit more babely than the other, I guess. She's got like a slightly smaller nose, but at the same time, she's also her face is from a different angle. Her sister is seen from profile exclusively. Well, not exclusively, but her nose is very. Actually, come to think, okay, the next panel, her nose is very specifically shown to be extremely. Well, that's a honker.
What chapter is this?
It's right before chapter 20.
Okay.
Again, it's Lot's daughters. These are your basic but they are your basic templates for the women in the rest of the book. They've either got a big nose or a slightly less big nose. The only real effect is that the slightly less big nose makes the other one look slightly younger, which she is. So she looks a little younger, and I guess and a lot of them have gap teeth too.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, Dory Sada would have loved this book. But yeah, a lot. They pretty much all just look like Aileen. This whole book is a tribute to his wife, which again, good on him, you know. But yeah. So I mean, there's distinguished like for instance, Rebecca here has a big ring in her nose, but she looks again the same. They all look the same.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my only criticism, really, is that he continues to over and over to show these women as looking largely similar, which at some point gets confusing. I mean, you really can only tell them apart because of the fact that of the era that they're in. Even the Egyptian women look this way.
Mm.
That's the interesting thing is the Egyptians are drawn as what he refers to as Semitic. Now, what's the justification for that?
Yeah.
But the Amazon commenters, well, it's like one of them says that the women are drawn ugly, ugly, hyper-masculine, but this is obviously just a person who is not familiar with Crumb.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, really, you've never seen Lenore Goldberg then, I'm assuming. Because there's a lot of Lenores in here. There's a lot of Lenore. That type does pop up here a lot. I guess, it's just that Crumb has an ideal female type, and I guess it's just hard not to keep depicting that.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be my only real criticism. I mean, they still come across as distinct characters, especially Sarah. But at the same time, you end up sympathizing with these women that in a way that when you're taught about this stuff, you're not really taught to do. Historically speaking, if anything, the women in this part of the Bible are figures of blame. Eve, for instance. Mm-hmm. But you feel bad for Eve here. I mean, just as a reader, you don't even have to impose that on it. It's the way that the Eve character is depicted. Mm-hmm. And so I wouldn't say probably that his depiction of the women all looking the same is coming from a sexist place, or at least not as sexist as Crumb could get. I mean, God knows Crumb could get awfully sexist, but at the same time, I've never really thought he was that sexist. I think it was more coming from an issue of being extremely familiar with women, so he had no problem with depicting them in certain ways because it was just like, whatever, I don't think he was ever really specifically being degrading to them in the way that some people take it. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's certainly a lot of issues of anger at women in his work, but overall, most women I've known tend to like his work. So apparently they're not taking it as hostile, at least not in the same way as some people presume it will. So I would say, I'd say that my idea here that he's depicting them sympathetically is probably, well, I'm taking it that way, so I guess it must be valid. Or maybe I'm just imposing my own stuff on it. I don't know. Is that how you took it?
I mean, sympathetic?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, when I'm
yeah,
reading this,
certainly
I find
Eve,
most
yeah.
of the men to be. I find most of the men to be unsympathetic jerks, and the women, I feel badly for their situation.
I guess I didn't think about it very much. Like Rebecca, I didn't know what the heck was going on there. It was trying to, where they fake out who is her husband now.
Jacob, wasn't it?
Yeah, they fake him out because he's gone blind and.
Oh yeah,
She sends in the other son, and he thinks that it's the one son, and he gives the wrong son his blessing, and that's kind of messed up.
Oh well, that's the. But the thing, the thing is that one thing I do notice is that the women, when they're old in this, generally, a lot of that sympathetic depiction goes away as far as the way their faces are.
Yeah.
Their faces
I should say it's Isaac.
Yeah.
Who's gone blind there. Yeah,
correct.
Jacob's later.
Yeah, I thought you were. And Rebecca is the one with the ring in her nose. I think it's Rachel you're thinking of.
It's Rebecca. And Jacob is one of her sons. Jacob is it is Rebecca.
Okay.
It's chapter 27. Where she sends Jacob in.
I see.
When Isaac is expecting Esau to come in with the food.
Yeah, I see where she shows up. Okay. But it's interesting she doesn't have it later. But the thing is that the older the women get, the more shrewish Crumb draws their faces. Mm-hmm. Her in particular. I mean, she's very scheming. Mm-hmm. You know, not really depicted that so much that way when she's younger.
Yeah, well, I mean, given the storyline there, it's hard to not draw her scheming.
Oh no, of course not. Of course not, because that's exactly what she's doing. But then again, it's like, you know, but then that just goes to then all of the characters are not really, all the female characters are not really the same. Some are scheming, some are not.
Yeah.
But she certainly is, and then there's the whole thing with Sarah and Hagar. Poor freaking Hagar, God.
Yeah, here, sleep with my husband, get pregnant. Oh, get out of here.
What you slept with my husband? You got pregnant? Go to hell.
Now I'm jealous of that kid.
And that's another example, though, of the plight of women in Genesis being depicted. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just merciless the way this is dealt with. But it's one of the few times also in the story where God is nice to a woman.
So how did you feel about this overall?
I love this book. I mean, first of all, it's just nice to have an example of something completely hand-drawn still being done. You know, this whole style that Crumb uses, this style is going to go away, and it's a shame. Because it really doesn't lend itself to, you know, the way people draw now. And nobody really wants to go to this kind of work. And this is work. This, I mean, good God. Every single one of these panels.
Took him 4 years, he says.
Yeah. Yeah, and it makes me feel like shit because just the first book of Lulu was 60 pages of story. It took me 3 years. I'm an asshole. He did this in 4. Oh my God, I suck. I feel that way every time I look at Crumb, so that's not a new experience for me. I think that it's wonderful that something like this was done by an underground artist, and not just any underground artist, but this one. Makes me wonder what a Skip Williamson version of the Gospels might look like. You know, it's Jesus saying, "Don't pee on your TV set." But I think I wouldn't say this is the best thing that Crumb has ever done. I would say, I mean, I wouldn't say this is his magnum opus. us, because the fact is I think he's had more than one.
Hmm.
I would say this is a great work that he did, but it's not like the ultimate Crumb work. Like, I mean, some people are really overselling it by saying that, but I mean, this is an adaptation. You know, you have to keep it in that realm and understand that's what you're dealing with. This isn't a personal work of his. You know, this is him dealing with the story. This is classy Crumb. Mm-hmm. This is, and definitely, if you're going to try to introduce someone to Robert Crumb, you could do a lot worse. But at the same time, it also doesn't really have the flavor of what people really go to Crumb for.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the illustrative side, his artistic ability. I can see why some people say, well, you know, I'm disappointed because Crumb didn't really bring what he brings to the table to this. But I mean, what was it going to? I mean, have Mr. Snoid? I mean, where are you going to put him? You know, it's and if you want that, really, what you can do is you can go to Larry Gonek. You know, you could go to the Cartoon History of the Universe. There's a whole section that deals with some of this stuff, and he's the one who, you know, he deals with it in a sort of a much more cartoony way because he's trying to depict it quickly. So he depicts it as gags. And I noticed no one ever thought that was blasphemous. So you can do that. You know, I mean, the way he deals with the whole Isaac thing, you know, it's like Isaac going away, sort of shaking, going, "Yeah, Dad, whatever," you know, which depicts certainly how it feels. And I noticed no one was ever offended by that, so he could have easily done that. But then again, it would have drawn a lot of fire. But it's, at the same time, no believer would have even bothered to read it.
Hmm.
I wonder how many Christians have bought this. I wonder, and haven't talked about it. Well, the thing about moderate Christians is you don't hear about them because they don't get angry and complainy. They just go about their lives.
Right. They don't get the media attention. It's the
exactly.
conservative ones who gripe about everything.
Right, a moderate one would have just a moderate religious person would have just picked this up, read it, going, "Wow, neat," and then that would have been it. So you don't hear about that, and I mean, it would have been interesting to have someone who actually believes in this stuff talking about this, because it would have been interesting to see their take. What did you get out of this?
Well, like I said, I really enjoyed the take on Joseph, especially. A little bit, I still kind of wondered why he did this. On the other hand, I mean, I think, as he says, these are powerful stories, and it's kind of, you know, it's a basis of Western civilization that people have never stopped reading for thousands of years. And I think it's important to understand it and to know what's really there.
Yes.
And the scholarship in the back in that commentary was interesting, and I wanted a lot more of that, really, because some of it you can't really understand from reading the text because it's so old and different from our own experience. And so I'd be interested in more background to it. But, you know, the work itself, yeah, the art is beautiful, and you can, you know, get another dimension to the book by reading it this way. Albeit, of course, as we said, you can't avoid doing some interpretation if you're going to draw something that didn't come with pictures. I'm overall not quite sure how I feel about it. I basically liked it. Some of it is a little hard to read just because of the ancient writing style, so some of it didn't quite grab me, but for the most part, yeah, I could read it, and it was kind of fun.
Now that actually brings me to something about it. The archaicness of the writing style, which, by the way, he makes reference to that in the NPR interview, and he was saying that he had to refer to two different translations because the one that he was mainly relying on, he would go to King James when that got to be a little archaic in its phrasing. and you go to King James because that's more poetic language, etc. Although, to be honest, if you know anything about biblical scholarship, King James is not really a great version to use, even though it's the most popular. But one thing I really do like about this is that he really brings across the alienness of the world he's depicting.
Yeah.
How different this is from any kind of modern sensibility. I mean, you have to assume that what you're looking at, though, is not necessarily the sensibility of the people who are depicted, but rather filtered through a Bronze Age sensibility, because we have to assume that that's the farthest back it actually goes, 5,000 years. But the just utter difference in the way of looking at things, the way of human interaction, the idea that there is no concept whatsoever of charity, of altruism, of any universality of being human. You know, it's about tribes and peoples, and it really shows you, I think, that state of mind. I don't know, it's like the archaicness of the writing, I guess once you manage to let your mind go into that place of the primitive alien way that these people think. I don't know if that's... I mean, I don't know. It's like part of the point of this, it seems to me, to be bringing that very thing across, how different this is. You know? It's kind of like how on the show Rome, they tried very hard to show how weird the Roman culture actually was, and rather than trying to show what we had in common with it, show how different it actually was from us. And I think that that's worth doing in stuff like this, because do we always have to have ourselves reflected back at ourselves? We seem to be liking that a lot more these days. What with, you know, most adaptations going out of their way to seem more contemporary, including my own, for instance. I am part of this. I did this, you know. But I mean, frankly, really, does anyone really want to try to understand the weird way German society worked? I don't think so. I don't care. But I don't really think it brings across what's valuable about that work. But in this case, I think that's important because we don't really know a lot of the things that are at the root of the way we think, and they actually come out of these things that, if we actually looked at them straight up, we would be struck at how freaking weird they really are. And and I think that that's valuable about this. It almost gives it an artifact quality.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I mean, I could get that sense too reading this. Like, just, you know, the society is very different from what we're. I mean, even I would, yeah, even compared to Jesus' time, you can feel the society in this is different.
I mean, you're talking about a people who literally would not eat something. Not because, you know, people sit there and go, oh, well, they banned this because of trichinosis. No, they had no idea what trichinosis was.
Yeah.
They banned this thing because something that walks on the earth should not have hooves like that. Literally, those were their reasons. That is about as alien as it gets. You know, you couldn't eat a lobster because something that's in the sea should look like a fish. Which, by the way, leads to the idea, so why did God put it in the sea? In that case. So what you're saying is that God put things that should not be there. So God is Cthulhu. Okay, I get it. Okay, fine. I'll go with that. That's fine. You know, but I mean, the point is that you're dealing with a group of people who thought of things that way. I mean, Adam and Eve, they did not suffer because, what they really did was had sex. No, literally, it is because they ate that apple. Or whatever the fruit actually was. Actually, in that DC Bible thing, you know what they make the fruit look like? The fruit looks like a man's genitals. It looks, or at least a big scrotum sac. That's what it looks like. So yeah, that's subtle, especially when Eve reaches for it longingly. But yeah, no, so. It just seems to me that as well as you possibly can, you should get that across rather than trying to make them feel like, I don't know, like Abraham was a dude like you. No, he was not a dude like you. A dude like you does not suddenly get a command voice in his head telling him to go kill his son. And Well, I guess there are dudes like them, but nowadays we have a very different view of them.
Yes.
Nowadays, that's the movie Frailty. So so yeah, no. I mean, I think that Crumb doing this, I think that really brings it to why I think it is actually good Crumb did this. Who else could depict the weirdness as well as that? Really, in such a solid kind of you can't escape this kind of way,
Yeah, well, I can imagine if basically any artist at Marvel or DC did this, it would just be boring, I think. And somehow, yeah.
I'd love to see a Rob Liefeld version of Genesis.
Pouches and belts.
On Adam. Pouches and belts made of skin.
Ouch.
That would be painful, but yes.
But yeah, something about... I can't quite put my finger on it, but something about this works better than almost any other artist probably would do it.
Well, it's kind of like only Nixon could go to China kind of thing. The thing is that there are other artists who have done this material recently. Scott Hampton did a version of at least the Adam and Eve story. I can't remember if he did more than that, but I know he did at least that part of it. And he did it in a more of a classicist kind of way, just that Scott Hampton, beautiful, painterly kind of way. But what's interesting is he was completely upfront about Eve and Adam having sex. There's a sex scene in that takes 3 pages.
Wow.
Yeah. It's very lovely. It's very lovely. But yeah, I mean, it's like, and I don't recall him getting any flack for that at all. Generally speaking, I don't think that really comics just really get the kind of flack that they used to, which frankly, I find that insulting. I mean, we need a word to dignify us, make us seem dangerous again. We don't really seem dangerous. We're too accepted. I don't like that.
Okay, but yeah, basically recommendation for this book.
Oh, well, that was a given already. I mean, this is definitely worth getting no matter what. Anything by Crumb is. But yeah, it's definitely, it's not a novelty. And the thing is, when you say what it is to people, it definitely has that ring to it, doesn't it? The Book of Genesis by Robert Crumb. That's like, I don't know, Euripides done by Mel Brooks. That's the kind of sound it has. Or I don't know, Oedipus Rex by Adam Sandler would probably produce a similar effect in people's minds.
Right. Yeah.
In other words, wildly inappropriate. But really, no. I mean, it's not. It isn't a novelty. It's really it is a serious work, and people should know that going in. Definitely, it's not. I mean, he says it's a comic book. And I like that because he's not really putting it in a pretentious place. So really, to be honest, he's diminishing expectations. It's very smart. Because then someone will read it and go, "Wow, this is more than just a comic book." Whatever that means, I'm perfectly fine with the term. I mean, a graphic novel, frankly, is. I don't like the term because it's a genre term now, and that's stupid. But it's like, you do comics or graphic novels? I do comics. Okay, fine, whatever. So, and this is comics. It looks like comics. People should be proud it's comics. And frankly, it kicks the ass of most adaptations in other media of this material that I've ever seen. There's our blurb.
Okay. Sounds good.
Mine anyway. There's a little detail in the cover I wish I'd brought up. If you look real close at Adam, his leg, you'll see what I'm talking about right away. A very, very cartoony little touch near his kneecap.
Oh, the little bug flying off?
Yeah, which is your classic cartoon sign of someone who smells. But yeah, it's like, so I'm wondering what that's supposed to mean. And he put it on the cover. I mean,
I don't know.
Who were the animals they skinned anyway? Poor things. I mean, it's like they were their friends the day before.
Yeah, petting the deer one day and butchering it for its skin the next.
But I... What did I do? I didn't eat any fruit. I don't eat fruit. I'm a deer. I eat grass.
The Book of Genesis, illustrated by R. Crumb, is published by W.W. Norton. Follow us on Blue Sky at Decon Comics. Join our Facebook page or the more active group. Listen to our audio-only videos on YouTube. All of those are linked from deconstructingcomics.com, as is our voicemail. You can communicate with us via social media or drop us a line at mail@deconstructingcomics.com. And of course, we'd love it if you shared episodes with your friends and left us a review in Apple Podcasts or other podcast outlets. Are you making a comic? Send it to us and we'll do a Critiquing Comics episode about it. The music backing the promotion of our Patreon is Change by Jazar. And yes, that music you're hearing is Abacab by Genesis. Next week, we flash back to the one and only time Kumar and I have met in person. While he was visiting Tokyo in 2015, we got together to record a review of the documentary film Crumb, which includes a fascinating portrait of the dysfunctional family Robert Crumb grew up in, and a discussion of whether some of his more discomforting works should be considered art. In that same episode, I'm joined by Deconstructing Comics co-founder Brandon to discuss Sean Murphy's graphic novel Punk Rock Jesus. Is it objective and well-written, or a promo brochure for atheism? All that next week. Till then, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Deconstructing Comics.